Good evening. Welcome to the January 26th work session of the Lynbrook Board of Education. Would all please stand for the pledge of the flag, and Mr. Yeager will lead us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On roll call, Mr. Murray is excused this evening. He is attending a wake for a family member. He wanted to be here, but unfortunately, family comes first. Just to also let you know, this is a work session this evening. There is no public comment during the work session. Our next meeting for public comment will be February 9th. February 9th will be our next board meeting, followed by one on the 16th. So to begin with, before we get into work session, a couple issues to handle. Just to recap the court cases this week, which caused a great deal of confusion and chaos. Many know about it. I'm not going to get into specific legal aspects of it, but in essence, there was a lawsuit filed against the state, and the lower court ruled the lawsuit, which you can read about again, had questions about the governor's mandate and other related issues, whether it went outside the purview of the executive branch and usurped the legislative branch and so forth. The lower court ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, which at the moment that happened, the judge ruled masks were no longer required in schools, and many reacted to that. A few hours later, that was addressed, well, immediately was addressed by the state, which came back and said, hey, it doesn't matter what the court said, you still have to file that. So what followed that is more legal actions took place. Legal actions took place, and then there was an appeal. The appeal will take place on Friday. Prior to that, a judge ruled that, hey, the masks must stay in place in school while I make a decision on what's going to take place. That hearing takes place on Friday. The decision will be whenever that judge decides to make his decision or her decision. When that decision comes out, one of two things will happen. The judge will make it mandatory to keep, well, the judge's decision will trigger that masks will either remain mandatory in schools or masks will no longer be required in schools. So the hearing is Friday. We don't know when that comes out, but that will be the only one of two things that happens based upon that judge's decision. In addition to that, the board has felt over the last several months that there's been some confusion and uncertainty as to decisions being made, and we would like just to get a little more guidance from the governor. So one, we can have more understanding of what's taking place and when it's going to take place. So a lot of credit for Mr. Yeager for drafting up the following letter, which will be posted, Dr. Burak, once the board approves it on our website and our other...
Once it's ready.
Once it's ready. And if everyone's happy with this draft of it, that's where it will take place. So I will read it so all will hear it, and then if we agree, then we will have that posted and we'll have it sent to the governor. And I think we all agreed also to send it to all our elected representatives. It shouldn't just be the governor, to our other elected representatives. Dear Governor Hochul, the members of the Lynbrook School Board of the Lynbrook Union Free School District on Long Island are writing this letter to gain a greater sense of clarity and understanding of the state's strategies and metrics being used for analysis in efforts to help us move our schools onto the exit ramp. By the way, great use of words, Mr. Yeager, exit ramp, of some of the demands and protocols that have been placed on us, including, but not limited to, the wearing of masks. In light of the most recent events concerning the constitutionality of the mask mandates and the confusion that has ensued directly after, we feel that a clear and concise exit strategy that comes directly from New York State leadership is vital to our community. Since our return to school full-time last March, and even before that time when we were partly remote, the Lynbrook Union Free School District has remained steadfast in our commitment to keeping our students and staff as safe as possible. During the shutdown, we complied with all of the state mandates. We served meals to all families in our community and provided child care for frontline workers. We have diligently followed the mask mandate at all levels, placed hand washing stations in appropriate areas, and continue to stress the importance of social distancing when necessary. We have contact traced when necessary, distributed home testing kits to our families, and asked our custodial staff to go above and beyond to keep our schools as clean as possible. They are, by the way, some of the real heroes in this process, all in the effort to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. And while not everyone in the community has agreed with these measures, we have asked the members of the community to set aside their differing viewpoints on the matter to do right by our children. And as you can imagine, this has not been easy and at times been extremely stressful, even contentious. Yet in the face of turmoil, chaos, and doubt, our community has banded together in an effort to keep one another safe and healthy. It is why we are writing you today to ask that you provide us with a potential exit strategy from some, if not all, of these mandates, as well as the metrics that you are looking at while the pandemic continues, to help us ultimately move to a school where students and staff do not have to interact under the confines of many of these mandates. How do we get there? What do we have to look forward to? And when can we look forward to it? We are not asking for a specific time per se, but rather an indication of how the state is monitoring these mandates based on positivity rates, hospitalization rates, infection rates, etc. And we are asking to be part of the decision-making process as our local communities elect us to represent them. What may be appropriate for one community may be far less appropriate for another. How is the state monitoring the various communities across New York State and making its recommendations befitting for the individual's communities? We appreciate the state's efforts to slow the spread and keep everyone safe. We'd also appreciate the state giving us a more conclusive direction on how we can begin to use the exit ramp to return to an even greater sense of normalcy in our schools. How will we know when we are safe to resume activities with little to no restrictions placed on our students and staff? With the ever-changing nature of COVID-19 and the constant evolving guidance from the CDC and DOH, we feel now is the perfect time for the state to begin to issue guidance to school districts as to how the state is looking at the numbers to determine a full resumption to normalcy. We believe that this type of guidance from the state would go a long way in improving the overall mental health of our student body and community. We've heard the fears over and over from our constituents that we would be living like this forever. It is a real fear, and one that has students and staff alike feeling hopeless. A concrete plan from the state would be helpful to us as a district as we continue to work with our community and attempt to assuage their fears and concerns. Thank you for your time and continued support of School District 20. We look forward to hearing from you. So again, Mr. Yeager, excellent job by drafting this. Well, I'm not sure we're going to actually get a response. I think it's important that we do put something out. We do talk about the fact that we want to have a role in this. And is the board good with this letter as is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if we can, Terry, get that actually mailed to, I guess, Missy Miller, also who covers our South End, Senator Kaminsky, and Senator Griffin, as well as the governor. Tell them we'd like a response within a few days, and that would be great.
Can I send it to, and also when we have it, I could send it to the contact. I have that Nassau County contact for the governor's office as well.
All right, thank you. Seeing no more questions, Dr. Burek, I want to address the flag football program.
Sure. I'd just like to announce that we have a new program for this upcoming sports season. The Jets have agreed to sponsor a new program, flag football, for ladies sports. So Lynbrook is one of, I think, about 8 districts who have agreed to participate in this program. So we'll be offering another sport for female athletes in our district. And we are looking for a coach for flag football, and it cannot be Mr. Belmont. And we're looking forward to that. It's something new. We will be pioneers in this field, and we hope that it is a successful program.
And I believe that they're looking to make that into a varsity program, correct?
It will be considered a varsity sport, yes.
Excellent. Finally, you can see the name Jets on a winning team there, Mr. Yeager.
And then also, the purpose of this evening, we have a budget work session coming up in February, and there are some new programs that we will be addressing with the board that have financial implications. And since our budget work session is one night, there's so much to go over, we wanted the board to have an opportunity to learn about 2 of the programs in greater detail prior to that, so that when we have the budget work session, you'll be informed as far as moving forward with these particular programs. So one of them is the BOCES rental and purchase program for our instruments. And our Director of Fine and Performing Arts, Mrs. Schaefer, has a presentation to share with you to explain to the board and the community what this is all about. Mrs. Schaefer? Who's doing it? Ms. Serpa?
Hi, good evening. My name is Adriana Schaefer. I'm Director of Fine and Performing Arts, and I'm here to present a proposal to further support our students' musical growth and success. So as you can see, these are but a few examples of the current Lynbrook-owned inventory that are in need of replacement. District ownership of higher quality instruments is going to allow students more efficient growth and achievement over the course of their studies. So why BOCES Arts and Ed? This program is successful for a number of reasons. The Arts and Education program offers over 400 artists and 100+ ticket vendors that are available to provide programs in schools and at the many cultural venues in the surrounding areas. Artists in Schools provides resources to schools to integrate the arts throughout all the New York State standards areas. This resource is currently used by our PTAs to regularly bring in cultural programs and experiences to our students. The Instructional Musical Instrument Service is successful for a variety of reasons, but mainly because it is modeled on the Learning Technology Program, which the district has used for almost 20 years, as well as county-wide bulk purchases, which provide the support to allow this program to run in a cost-effective manner. The instruments are also already negotiated at slightly lower than market value and provided by local reputable vendors. So with that being said, the bottom line is that each instrument, if cared for properly and consistently, can have over a 30-year use of life. Over a 30-year period, the district will experience a total loss of over $1 million on rentals from an outside vendor, as well as repairs on rundown and deficient instruments. The district will receive arts and education aid on the district's music lease/purchase program at a rate of 63%. This bid is highly competitive and only includes high-quality instruments. When you combine these factors, it's unlikely that the district could obtain this quality of instruments more cheaply or in any other manner. Additionally, the instruments are not just drop-shipped, but they're unpacked, set up, and play-tested by reputable vendors before being hand-delivered, ready for the students to play. This is also the component of, there is also a component of professional development through NISCAM, NISMO, or possible vendor-provided PD for the teachers to consider that is involved in this. With 2 separate purchasing contracts and full ownership of instruments, the district will be able to lower the annual repair costs and acquire a nominal revenue after aid, which is then returned to the general fund to support all programs. The district would receive arts and ed aid on the total project amount following school year. And I do have personal experience with this program and the quality of instrument as well as vendor service associated with it. My former district did an emergency purchase of over 100 instruments at the beginning of the pandemic to avoid sharing of supplies. And finally, the State Ed Department carefully considered this Nassau BOCES one-of-a-kind proposal for service and approved it. The Instructional Musical Instrument Service has been successfully running for 2 years, and many instruments have been completely, many districts have been completely satisfied with the service. And these are just a few of the districts that have used the service in the past, as well as there are a number of districts that are in contract for the current upcoming school year. So that is all the information I have on that. Are there any questions?
I'm just curious. I'm
Sure.
not sure if this would be for you or for Dr. Lynch. Do you have a sense of, like, let's say each year for the next 3 years, what our savings could be?
Yeah, so we do not start saving immediately. So the whole point, as Mrs. Schaefer indicated, we are waiting for, oh, thank you, Ben. Thank you very much. I got it. You got it.
Oh,
Handouts, Mr. Belmont. So what happens is we begin
Dr.
with...
Lynch, you know I don't understand numbers. That's why I come to you and Dr. Perry.
Absolutely. So what happens is that we need to wait for the BOCES aid to kick in. So actually, in the first year, we wind up losing $110,000, but that would be in the current budget. As you're going to hear at the budget presentation in about a month, that if there's any year to make this investment, this is the right year because we have some significant state aid coming in. But to answer your question directly, Mr. Belmont, we begin to see, we turn the corner by year 3, where we start to make back on that initial investment. By year 7, we are made whole, and then for the rest of the 23 years, it is operating pretty much free.
Question. Do we see in this program the opportunity for students to have access to instruments that we now really don't have anyone playing in the district?
That's certainly an option. The rental company we use, we have access to those instruments if they are needed. So it's definitely an option, but what I will say is if there's not an enormous need for those instruments, it's not worthwhile to purchase them if they're not being used on a consistent manner. So, which is why we don't currently own them. And the numbers on this and the numbers that I pulled and figured out as far as what the first purchase would be were based on the highest number of rentals that we have of those instruments to bring that cost down sooner rather than later.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question, I'm sorry.
Currently, I mean, I'm sure there's a point at which it definitely goes out for repairs, but do we have a situation now where teachers themselves, our own music teachers, are making minor repairs themselves to the instruments?
Yes, of
So
course.
what kind of time is that cutting into for them making repairs themselves?
So those repairs will be made, while they may be minor repairs, they do still take time, like, everything else. And they are able to do certain amount of repairs that aren't too intricate, but it cuts into prep time, it cuts into planning, and there are times when you may be in a lesson and you have to do a quick fix for a student's instrument to be functional for that lesson.
Okay, could the quick fix, the sort of real-time quick fix, are they still able to do that? Or in this process, is it sort of like, you can't touch it or you void the warranty type of situation? No.
No, it doesn't. They are still able to do quick fixes, and by quick fixes, on a wind instrument, it would be, replacing a screw or a spring or something like that along those lines. Those are the things that the teachers are capable of doing. Anything more involved than that really needs to go out for repair. But those type of repairs typically happen on older instruments that need more, they just need more repair because they've sort of overstayed their welcome.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anything else from the board? Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just on a practical note, what this all will come down to is when I do the budget presentation, you will see a line in your budget books that are coming home next week. In the regional certification line, there'll be a $120,000 increase there, so that's where it's practically embedded.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our second presentation this evening, the goal is to educate the board a little bit more on a program that we piloted last summer. As you know, for years we've been talking about bringing children back to our district, children who are in out-of-district placements and providing a home for them back in our own home district so that they don't have to travel out and they could have a summer experience that is similar to their school year experience rather than putting them into an out-of-district placement. So last year we piloted an extended school year program to see how it would work, and I believe it worked very well and is actually growing. So to just provide you with more information about this program, our Director of Special Services is here to do a presentation on the extended school year. Mrs. Saban.
Good evening, everyone. Hi. Clicker. Okay. Thank you for allowing me the time to present on our extended school year program, or ESY. It's important to know ESY is not an optional program like summer school, and parents can choose to register like they do for summer playground or a reading enrichment program. Thank you. So who is eligible for extended school year services, or ESY? School districts are required under federal law, under IDEA, to provide extended school year services for special education students when it's warranted and recommended by the Committee on Special Education. Our special education plan, the Lynbrook plan that's renewed every 2 years, has always had our extended school year regulations included there. ESY is considered part of a special education student's right to a free and appropriate public education. And when it's determined by the Committee on Special Education, it's our responsibility to provide this. It's an IEP mandate, and it's based on data of regression following breaks in school service. Students who would be considered for extended school year services have intensive management needs. They might have multiple disabilities. They're students who may need to be served in home, hospital, or residential settings. And they're students who demonstrate regression of previously acquired skills that take greater than 6 weeks in order to recoup those skills. Students that require ESY require specialized instruction and a very specialized environment. They have very significant delays. They may have delays in their communication skills that require an augmentative communication device in order to facilitate development of their communication skills. This is one of our classes over at Waverly, and the instruction, it's a very specialized instruction. The design of the program itself needs to facilitate that specialized instruction. They may require a setting that allows for repetitive tasks. They may require behavioral strategies like a token reinforcement system. And these are things that are required in order for them to develop academic, social, and self-help skills. Again, over at Waverly, we have specialized design that for some of our students, they require sensory and behavioral strategies. So again, just another photo there of the design of the program. I thought it was important for you to have a background on who these students are before taking a look at what the program would require. So late last spring, we were approved by the New York State Education Department to run our own program in district, and we were able to pilot what it, as Dr. Burek mentioned, what it would require in order to run special class placement. So these are students, we had three classes last summer, and these are students who otherwise would have had to go out to tuition-based programs in either a non-public or a public school. We were able to include 17 students that would otherwise have had to go out. There were 2 elementary classes and 1 middle school class.
So some of the students in this program were, in fact, last year outside the district.
Yes. These were students who either had just come into kindergarten, so they weren't
Right.
Our responsibility the summer before. They were placed through the county in preschool. And they were students who otherwise went, let's say, to Carl Place, and those are budget lines that you've seen before for out-of-district placements. And 1 student returned from being in a full-time placement and was able to return for the summer to begin and transition at that point.
I just have a quick question. So is
Sure.
it that normally they would be here during the year, but then they would have to go to another district for the summer?
Yes.
And now they're able to be here all year?
Yes.
Just wanted to clarify. Thanks.
And that's certainly difficult
Nice.
for those students to make those transitions. One of my later points, but yes, absolutely. So the future of extended school year, as Dr. Burek mentioned, we do anticipate the need to add, am I on the wrong slide? No, add 9 additional students for this summer. And again, it's exactly like last year. We have kindergartners in small special class in district this year that were not here in Lynbrook schools before that we know about. We have 2 new entrants that moved into the district during the school year who we anticipate CSE will make that recommendation because that has been on their IEP in the past. And then who are those 9 additional students? And then other students who this school year were able to return to district from out of district placements. 1 came back from BOCES. So Those are the students that we anticipate will need the program. These are the things that we are going to require to run the program. It's predominantly personnel. You know, we require teachers. The state education department requires that we have a nurse present. We need these small classes, just like we run them during the school year. There are teachers, there are aides present. They require related services. So those are, again, costs that are going to be required wherever the students attend school. Transportation costs remain the same whether the students are in district or out of district, so that is not an additional cost. And these are the projected costs of the extended school year. This is an estimate of what we anticipate it will cost. It's important to note that almost all of the expenses related to this program can be reimbursed at an 80% rate. And this has allowed the district to create a new revenue source that was not available until we had the state approval and the tuition setting rate.
And the staff you're going to be using, do we think this is simply going to be existing staff that's going to carry over for an extra month? Or do we see a lot of new contracted staff specific for this purpose? Do you have any sense of that?
Our goal would be to post the positions. Once we have a sense from the CSE recommendations, if this is approved and all of that, we would post those positions. Our hope would be always to offer those positions to Lynbrook staff, preferably even staff that the students are familiar with. If that's not available, our staff works really hard all year long, myself included. Everyone maybe needs a summer break, and so if we can't hire them from within Lynbrook, then we would have to seek that from outside of Lynbrook.
Okay. And what do you see in terms of new kids coming into the program? Are you prepared? I mean, I can just imagine a good number of parents looking at this and wanting a lot more information and thinking, this is something my kid needs. Or are you guys being very strategic about picking, and well, picking isn't the right word, identifying those kids who you think are of greatest benefit, because obviously you need to manage growth to a certain extent.
Yeah. So there are two sides to looking at the growth of the program. One is the piece that I just explained. So I can even anticipate right now, we're looking at least 5 kids that are likely to come in the fall, who the following 2023 are going to likely require a summer program. That's growth that's going to happen because we are running this program and we're able to serve students within the community, and that's always going to be our goal. The side that you're asking about, who's the gatekeeper of this program? We don't want to see this grow in a way that it will be unmanageable. Remember, there are federal regulations. I started my presentation by saying this isn't something a parent can choose to sign up for. It's not a reading enrichment program. It's not, you can't request this program, and that's how the students are included. There are regulations that we take data throughout the school year, and kids who have IEPs, they have goals. We progress monitor those goals. We collect data all year long. And the most important data that is going to speak to who is eligible for this program is the data that we collect following breaks in service, after those school vacations. What could the student do before the school vacation? Then there was a break in service. Then after the school vacation, they regress because of their disability, and we know, every student regresses over the summer slide, their reading skills fall back a certain amount. That's expected. What goes beyond that is that it takes greater than 6 weeks to recoup those skills, and so we continue to take that data. We take the data following those school breaks, and we see how long did it take for the student to regain those skills that they had already acquired and now lost because of break in service. And for students who have disabilities, they genuinely need, and that's why I wanted you to know who these students are. They need repetition. They need discrete trial. It's broken down into small tasks. It's repeated every day. And if we don't continue to teach that skill, they're not always able to maintain that skill. That's based on the severity of their disability. Again, we're talking about kids who require a small special class all year long, not the general population of students.
Okay.
Thank you.
A couple of questions. So for the anticipated needs, it says 4 classes. Those would all be in the summer at Waverly? Or it said something earlier about one at the middle school?
Right. So my recommendation would be for all of those classes to be at Waverly, and our pilot program included middle school students.
Okay.
So we did have one middle school class over there. We had a few high school students who were not in these special classes, but required extended school year services, maybe just for reading. Everything was there, and then we could have one person there supervising the progress of the program, maintaining safety, all of the things that and that was included in one of the earlier slides, the personnel that we need. So having it all in one place, the state requires a nurse.
Right,
So rather than having a nurse over at the middle school for one class, and then another one over at Waverly, having them all in the same building would make a lot of sense.
So the classes are typically broken up like K to 2, 3 to 5, middle, high, kind of in that.
Right, so we're
Awesome.
required to maintain a 3-year chronological age range in each of the classes. So we could potentially have, based on the students we know about, 2 of our more primary classes, students ranging in age from kindergarten to 2nd grade, 1 ranging from 3rd to 5th grade, and then 1 in middle school.
Okay. And my other question was, you mentioned revenue prior. If we used to send children who needed the extended services out of district, have we looked into, if we are not at the capacity, have we looked into opening up our program to bringing in other students to take in revenue?
That is always an option. The important thing to remember, and we talked earlier about how difficult it is sometimes for these students to transition, to get used to a new program. So I've certainly, in my previous district, we had tuition-based students often come into our programs. I was the one that screened them. And the important thing to realize is that to invite a student in just for a 6-week program who has difficulty with transition might have associated, behaviors or difficulties that go along with that. And so there would have to be a very careful screening process and an understanding of, what student could easily transition into for just 6 weeks and then back to their other district.
Right.
It's very difficult for these students, but it's absolutely always an option because, again, when we got that state approval, we got the state set a tuition rate, and that's certainly something that we could consider.
Okay.
And, school year or extended school year where appropriate.
It's wonderful that we're able to keep the students in district.
Yes.
I just have another question. Are the students evaluated every year to determine whether or not they still need it each summer?
Yeah, so every year a student has an annual review. We discuss every aspect of the program that they require. We know already one of the students who was in our small class last year has done very well this year. We're always looking to have students be in a less restrictive setting. He's been able to make that step throughout the school year, and so he wouldn't require a small special class in the summertime because he's moving in the other direction on the continuum. So we already know of one student who will no longer be included in this program because his needs don't represent that he would require that.
Thank you.
Could you just clarify for me, just so I have a better understanding of it? The program itself is 6 weeks or longer?
It's 6 weeks. The New York State Education Department requires a 30-day summer program. If we were to project what this summer looks like, it's actually 4th of July would be the first day, and they allow us to count that as a school day. So it would be 29 days. But yes, it's a 30-day program.
And of those 17 students, are any of those in district during the year, out of district during the year? And does this impact, having this program, does it allow us to bring those that may be out back in?
So that's what we did in this past year. We were able to bring students back in. We have students who return from BOCES, from another public school, parentally placed, plus our new entrants are new to that as well. But they've been with us all year, all school year this year, in our small special classes, either these students we're talking about in the middle school or over at Waverly.
So these are kids that were in our district, but we were sending them out for the summer for the ESY. Now we're
Right.
able to, so they're already in our district, and then we're able to keep them in for ESY. Is this program in any way enable us to bring more kids out of district during the regular school year into the district? Does it have the ability to somehow be the impetus for that?
That's essentially what did happen for some students last summer in the pilot program, if I understood the question
Right.
correctly.
So, and I'm trying to just wrap my head around it too. So, because we had a 6-week program over the summer, and it was just for the summer, by engaging those students in that program, we were also able to keep them in our school district during the year.
Correct. And one of the points I was going to make when we talked before about how difficult it is for students to transition in and out of these programs and have to go to a different school district and get used to it. Again, we collect data on all of these students. So when I started here the summer of 20, I hope I have that right. So, and then that summer we sent students over to Carl Pace, for example. So I know there were many difficulties over there. I got calls, we worked on it together. Because the student had difficulty transitioning to that program, functioning there, even though they did a great job with them, and we were glad to have that option available to us. Then transitioning back into the school year in the fall, what that data looked like, that behavioral data, that regression data, we have that from that fall on those students. And then this past summer, we ran a pilot program. They didn't have to transition. They didn't have to go to, let's say, Carl Place and adjust to being there and the new staff and the new environment and going somewhere on a bus, and that never happened. It was seamless. So for these students, they remained in their same classroom, some of them with their same teacher. Obviously, our middle school students had to, go over to Waverly, but they were certainly able to manage that. That wasn't an issue for those students at that age. But for our younger students, it really is a challenge. So in a sense, we had to be able to work past everything that happened the prior fall and get the kids back on their feet and, used to their routines and all of that. And we didn't have to do that this past fall with many of those those students.
But why is it? Why were we able to keep? I understand why the transition was better for them, but it's a seamless transition from one school year to the next. There was no transition. So if we didn't have the summer program, they would have been going back to an outside placement.
Yeah. Correct.
So why were we able to? Why was the summer placement the reason why we were able to? For a variety of reasons, for logistics, for cost, and for every health, and for family consent. Why was that the reason why we were able to get them to stay in? Because without that summer program, they would have been going outside somewhere during the regular year. But somehow the summer program, other than for the transition purpose, allowed them to stay in our district. Why couldn't we have them in our district prior to that summer program?
Okay, so the students that returned because we're always looking to have students return to the district.
Correct.
So it's not that the summer
So that was the first part. They were going to return. So the more I would think that the families would love if we can get it, from a psychological standpoint, an emotional standpoint, a family standpoint, a financial standpoint, the more of these kids we can keep in our district, the better off for everyone. And this program will be something that should be able to continuously enable us to do more of that.
So if what you're asking is, so for families and for the students, the best thing is to be in one place for the 12 months. So for the school year and the summer. So that's why those families had those out-of-district placements, because it was seamless. It was a 12-month program. So but because we didn't have the summer program, they didn't even consider that us of being an
That's
option.
unlikely. So now that we have it, they
the
will
summer
consider
one,
us.
now they will
And
consider
they're not
us.
fighting us for the outside placement. They like the lack of
Well, it
transition.
depends. That goes through the CSE
Right.
process, so.
Correct, but at least now there's a greater.
It's not
imp-
parent choice.
Right. But it's a greater preference to stay now, because even though it was just 6 weeks compared to that
Correct.
much, that 6 weeks enables them to have that
We
continuity.
have an
Correct.
available
Okay.
appropriate placement for them now.
So it wasn't necessarily a lack of services that we were providing, it was a lack of the appropriate length of the term we needed them here.
Right, and let me just say that I don't think that they were decisions that were independent of each other. So students returning, we're always looking to do that. We ran this program, it made it easier for students to come back. It made it easier because kids didn't have to overcome that obstacle of transitioning in and out from one school to another. Yes, it certainly makes it easier for parents who they're like, you know what, why don't I just let them stay over there in that district? They're happy, why should they have to readjust to coming back to Lynbrook and then go back again? Not that it's always parent choice, the committee makes a decision, but it certainly makes it easier for everyone.
Right, but that gave, I appreciate that, because that gave me, you shed light on the historical issue of them having to go back away, and having something as simple as this program here had a great upside to it because of all the other benefits we're getting
Right.
from that. So thanks.
And I know everybody jumped in with their questions, but I did have a little bit of a summary, and these are important points, so I just want to make sure to include them. As I mentioned earlier, federal regulations require school districts to provide ESY to help special education students maintain progress and avoid regression. Running an extended school year program in Lynbrook allows students, as we just said, a seamless transition from one school year to the next. We have evidence of reduced transition-related behaviors and maintenance of skills following the 2021 pilot program. And as far as I'm concerned, the most important point, and please, take this into consideration, wherever possible, we want all students who call Lynbrook home to be educated here in our community schools. We want to keep students home for ESY in Lynbrook and allow our special education students to be fully integrated into our schools. Offering an extended school year program here is one of the many ways that Lynbrook maintains an inclusive school community, and our special class students are able to live and learn beside their friends in the community. I know you already asked a lot of questions, but does anybody
what I'm
have?
thinking, so this program, and you hit the highlights in your summary, and as much as you've come now and explained to us the cost and the involvement and the logistics and the spacing, this appears to be a great program. So it's very possible you're going to come back to us in 6 months and say, I need more money and I need more space, because we may, or maybe not more money actually, that may be one of the benefits, but we may need space or potentially staffing, because we may have more students that
Well,
want to.
she already indicated the following summer, 2023, there'll be 5 additional students.
Right, well, that's the one she
That
knows
we know
about.
of today.
That you
Right,
know of,
right,
but there could be
right.
others because of the
Always.
popular program, right.
Correct.
And that's
Right.
always going to be to our benefit, I assume, if we can.
Correct.
So in essence, well, what began as a 6-week program for summer is really enabling us to bring our kids back into Lynbrook.
Correct.
And that's great.
Correct.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Just-
Ms.
I just-
Saban.
To speak a little bit about the practical side of it, again, this is a prelude to the budget book. So where will this appear in your budget book? So there is a line that I make a joke of every year. I call it, it's interfund to capital, interfund to special aid. Nobody cares about this code. That's the code we're talking about here. So what happens traditionally is we pay Carl Place tuition. 80% of that tuition comes back to us from New York State, and the district pays for 20%. Now, instead of paying Carl Place, Lynbrook's costs get reimbursed at 80%, and then it only costs us in real dollars the 20%. So I don't want to say revenue neutral, but revenue neutral, and as Mrs. Saban indicated, we've always had kids doing related services here in the summer. We had no mechanism with which to aid on those because we didn't have an approved program. Now we have an approved program. We now get to see revenue that was purely costing us money in the past. So
Right, so that's the increase of revenue.
So it does actually
By having
increase
this program,
revenue.
we get to increase revenue that way. Thank you.
So maybe we have to go buy that building across the street, so when you have all these, when you got all these more kids that want to come in the next few years. All right, anything else from the board? All right, going to move to, I'm going to get you, we'll get you a copy of this, the letter, and edit it out. fixed up because it was edited. Superintendent's recommendations, I'd like to ask for consent agenda and resolutions 2001G30, 2201G31, and 2201NC8. May I have a motion, please? Mrs. Marcus, second, Mrs. Hanson. All in favor? Can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Mr. Yeager, second, Mrs. Danino. All in favor? All right, that completes our meeting. We look forward to seeing you on February 9th. Everyone stay healthy and happy. Thank you.